CQ knowledge is seeking to understand the similarity and differences between the value system in various cultures and how your own personal value system fit into each one of them. No matter whether you use the CQ assessment report section on culture values or the GPS system by Hofstede, GlobeSmart, or cultural navigator assessment tools, this knowledge of where your value system fit into the cultural value system that you're in is a good place to start. Individualism versus collectivism. The counter value of individualism versus collectivism is the degree to which personal identity is defined in terms of personal individual characteristics versus the group's collective characteristic. In individualism cultures, emphasis is on the individual's goal and their rights. Collectivism is emphasized on the group's goal and personal relationship between members of the group. Power distance. One of the most helpful ways to compare various cultures is to understand the differences in how cultures view authority, power, and status. This is called the power distance index. Power distance is the degree to which members of the society are comfortable with inequalities in power, influence, and wealth. Power distance is about the amount of hierarchy and inequality that is assumed to be appropriate and normal within a society. Low power distance, there's emphasis on equality, shared decision making. High power distances, emphasis on difference in status, and the decision is made by superiors. Uncertainty avoidance. The uncertainty avoidance index is the degree to which most people within a culture tolerate risk and feel threatened by uncertain, ambiguous circumstances. Low uncertainty avoidance, emphasis on flexibility and adaptability. High uncertainty avoidance, emphasis on planning and predictability of outcome. Cooperative versus competitive. Cultures that are more oriented around being cooperative places a priority on nurturing, supportive, and collaboration relationships to get results. Cultures that are more oriented around being competitive are focused on achievement, success, competition, assertiveness, and results. Short versus long term. In short term, the emphasis is on immediate outcome, success right now. In long term, emphasis is on a long-term outcome, success later. Direct versus indirect communication, sometimes called low versus high context. In this cultural dimension known as low versus high context, a low context culture, direct, takes very little for granted in communications. Things are explained explicitly and directly. Little is left to subjective interpretation. Very little emphasis is placed on using the context to interpret the meaning. In a high context culture, communication presumes an understanding of unwritten rules and a shared narrative that informs a person of what's going on. It's not necessarily assumed that people mean what they say or say what they mean. Emphasis is on the tone, context, and verbal. Being versus doing. Should time be spent primarily on being productive, or is it more liberally dispersed across various obligations in life? This is the debate that surrounds the being versus doing cultural value. Being emphasizes the quality of life. Doing emphasizes on being busy and meeting goals. The awareness and insights that come from understanding our personal orientation versus cultural norm is incredibly helpful. This kind of awareness is a good starting point. But we can't stop with just awareness. How do we actually adapt to a myriad of differences on the same team? How do we respect each other's preferences and still remain true to ourselves? And what can be done to actually train ourselves and others to be more effective working across culture? That is why we need to develop our culture intelligence.